Table for One, episode 24. This week we're looking at Gloomhaven, Clank, and asking the community, why do you play solo games? Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Table for One. This is episode 24, and this week we have a couple of games we're going to talk about, both of them pretty hot right now, as well as an answer to a very commonly asked question that we actually asked you guys. So, thanks in advance. Once again, this is Anthony and Jason.
Yo, my peoples, what's up?
And this week we're going to, step back from our whirlwind interview tour of the solo gaming industry and kind of look at a couple of games we've been playing lately. So, kind of slowed down a little bit, but we also did, a little offline interviews with some of you guys, which was awesome. You got a ton of feedback, right, Jason?
Yeah, no, I put up a post on Facebook, and you guys really came through. And also, BGG had a similar post that I was following, which was, also good. It seems like, and Low Player Con also had an episode with that kind of themed around the solo gamer stigma. It's a really important question. It's like, okay, why do we all play these solo games? Are we all just kind of trolls, hidebound in our little caves? That doesn't jibe with the fact that it's probably the most active Facebook group I've ever been a part of. So, just wanted to throw it out there and talk about it a little bit. But you guys want to listen for the games? We're going to give you games first.
Games. You want to listen to us just talk? Come on. So we have two games, one of which is probably the hottest thing coming out of Kickstarter in a long time, potentially just because he didn't print nearly enough copies for everybody, and that's Gloomhaven. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but first off, I'll just warn you, no spoilers. I have not played that far, so this is mostly initial impressions. Further down the line, I'll have a much further in-depth review, possibly spoiler-related, but this will be mostly about mechanics and how it plays solo. And then
hopefully I'll be able to contribute to said review, since I did not back it, and I'm sitting here wondering why I didn't back it.
As many people are right now. So I'll go ahead and dive in on that. Gloomhaven, I'm sure you've seen it and heard about it. It's been, the top of the hotness now for about a month or so. This was, I don't know, maybe 8 months late delivering. But for once, with very good reason and with a whole bunch of communication. So we knew exactly what happened, when it happened, why it happened. Isaac Childress, the designer for this, is extremely engaged, super easy to get a hold of, and cares a lot about these things succeeding. We're actually going to be talking to him in a couple of weeks. We're pretty excited about that, to kind of ask him how that went and how much hair he lost in the last few months. But the result is a game that you can tell was built by somebody who loves games, and this is a passion project. This is not, some cynical big box game from one of the, the major publishers out to make money, good or not. It is just, forget gameplay, you open the box, and there's just so much stuff here. So for those of you who have not watched an unboxing video and were not lucky enough to back it, there are something like 1,500 cards in the box. There are 18 different characters. So each of those has a miniature and a whole stack of cards and player boards and everything else. There are standees for, I think, 50 different types of enemies, many of them multiples. There's just a bunch here. It's one of the biggest game boxes I now own. It takes up a big chunk of the top of my shelf. And because of that, unpacking it is quite the process. So, it took a couple hours to just pull everything out and punch it. It took another couple hours to sort it. It took another couple hours just to figure out where everything goes and how to set it up and play it. So it's the kind of game, I joked about this on Twitter, it's the kind of game where you almost kind of need a second table and you just leave it there. And part of that is when you look through the scenario book, there's almost 100 scenarios in here. 100. Each of them individual, different, and it's campaign-based. You might have heard the whole legacy word getting tossed around. It's not really a true legacy game, but it does have some of the legacy elements where you are advancing, leveling up, buying equipment, unlocking new locations, unlocking new enemies, kind of changing the potential scenarios you might face based on how your campaign moves forward, unlocking new characters. By default, there are 5 base characters that kind of come into the box. These are the first 5 you can just kind of pop open. Everything comes in a little box inside the box. And then there are 13 more that you can unlock and access kind of as you progress in the game. So for those who want to be, surprised and not know what any of those are, they remain sealed until you are ready to open them and the game tells you to. There are also a handful of envelopes with stuff that you can unlock and unseal based on certain criteria in the book. So long story short, it's legacy-ish. There's unlockable content. You're not going to be ripping anything up. The only thing you put stickers on is this board you don't actually play on. It's kind of just a map on the side. You could use a PDF for it. But thematically, it's pretty cool. Now, I have not played this game nearly as much as a lot of other people. Life and all that gotten in the way. But I have had a chance to sit down and play it a handful of times solo. So I wanted to kind of give my impressions of how it plays, what makes it different than, your typical dice chucking dungeon crawler. And then, is it a good solo game? Is it a game you're going to be interested in playing by yourself? So first off, it is, on the surface, it looks like your basic dungeon crawl. You're laying out tiles, you have standees, you have miniatures going in to fight these different characters, all these different status conditions, all these different things can happen based on kind of what comes up. But there are no dice, which is kind of the staple of these kinds of games. And everything is card driven. Not only is it all card driven, but everything has its own unique deck. So each of your characters has a unique deck. Each of the enemies has a unique deck. And then there are attack modifier decks that are, again, unique. At the start of the game, they're all the same, but as you kind of level up, you'll be able to change them and upgrade them and add cards and remove cards. And so what you're doing is every turn you pick 2 cards, and when you play them, you're going to choose the top text from one card and the bottom text from another card. All the cards have initiative numbers on them. The lowest number goes first. So you might go first one round, the enemy might go first another, your other character might go first a different one. When you're playing solo, the book recommends you play with 2 characters. So you're not going to be able to play with one. And it also recommends that you increase the difficulty of the enemies by 1 level to offset the fact that you have perfect information. Because when you play with other people, you don't know what cards they're going to play. So you can't plan for initiative. You also can't plan for things like healing quite as effectively. And it's a little tricky to know what to play and when. Whereas when you're playing solo, of course, you have all the cards in front of you. So you know exactly what everybody's going to do and when. As a result, you do kind of ramp up the difficulty of the enemies just a little bit. You're going to get personal goals, for every one of these, things you have to try to get done during the course of the scenario. And then you're going to tackle it. And, I did play this a year ago at Origins with 4 people, and it took about 2 hours to get through this first scenario. Playing it solo with the 2 characters, it took about an hour. So you're looking at about 30 minutes per player, which I'm pretty sure is what the box says. So it's pretty accurate. The setup time is actually not that bad if you know where all the stuff in the box is. You don't need that many things. Just keep all your character stuff together in one baggie and you're good to go. But in terms of a solo game, it's like almost every other dungeon crawl. It's not specifically designed to be played solo, but because of the way the card play is, and because of kind of this puzzle element, trying to figure out which of the cards you're going to play, when you're going to play them, how you're going to combine 2 cards from your hands, making sure you save certain cards that are more powerful. There are certain abilities on cards that will make the card go away for the rest of the scenario. It goes to the permanent discard side of your board. Those are usually very powerful and very useful, but if you use it too early, you might need it later on. It's, difficulty is going to ramp up throughout the scenario. So you really have to plan for these things, and it's not easy. I played through this first scenario and I won by like a card. Like one of my characters was dead and the other one was down to like 2 health points. And that was just the first scenario. So I had a lot of fun with this. It gave me kind of that Mage Knight vibe. It's not like Mage Knight, so don't get me wrong there, but it kind of gave me that vibe of managing those cards, playing them in the right order, making sure you save the ones that are more useful for later, managing your resources, adjusting everything as you go to make sure you don't get carried away. There's an experience track. There's money you can pick up. None of that does anything during this scenario. It's all for stuff that you'll get afterwards. So it's kind of like a good RPG in a video game or even, tabletop, where if you go in and start looting stuff like crazy because you want to get all the cool stuff, then you might take a little bit too much damage and just not be able to manage the rest of the scenario. So I like it a lot. Now, I haven't played it a lot. I've done that first scenario. I've played through part of the second one, and I do have plans to play this with a full group. So, I haven't pulled anything out. I haven't stickered anything. I haven't really started a campaign yet. But the nature of it, the way it's all set up, you could certainly run multiple campaigns as long as you're careful with kind of how you work with the board. And I may just do that. I think the key for me is finding a place to leave it set up because there's a whole lot of game here. So it's not to make anybody too jealous, because if you're listening to this and you don't already have it, you probably can't get it for a while, but it is very good.
Thank you. I mean, I'm looking at BGG and different other places like that, and I'm trying to find negative reviews of the thing or like criticisms or something. Full disclosure, I think a couple of people, our listeners know this, but we are going to interview the designer, Isaac Childress, in a couple weeks. So please be on the lookout for that. I want to, in prep, I'm like, what's going on with this game? It can't be that great. There's always somebody that says have some negative to say. Nothing, not a peep. A lot of this stuff is like minor. It's like, I think card quality, component wise, it could have been a little bit better. That's kind of the most, like real criticism that I've seen is like, the physical game itself is too heavy, it's too big, there's too much stuff in it, and for what you get, it's the quality could have been better. So how did you feel about that?
I haven't had a single problem with it, honestly. Like, considering the volume of cards in this box, I honestly wouldn't have been surprised if the quality was even a little bit lower. I think it's right where it needs to be for the price point at which he sold this game, and is going to sell it at retail too. It's, the Kickstarter price, it was obscene. So people who buy it later and then go out back and find out what it cost originally, or, they're going to spit out their milk. But the the retail price isn't that bad considering what all's in this box. And there are, I think, 18, 19 miniatures here. There's unique components for every character, unique components for every monster. The artwork on the monster standees is very good. So I don't have a problem with any of that. I would say that the volume of stuff is a little daunting. I think the storage solution in the box works based on how much is there, but it does take a really long time to break it down. It takes a long time to set it up. It takes a long time to sort through things. It takes a long time to dig out the pieces you need. I ended up putting different standees in different bags, so I have like 50 baggies in this box now, which is just a lot. So I'm trying to find a better solution for that. But all that stuff aside, like I said, if you can leave it set up, if you have the group, if you're going to play it alone a lot, like, I don't know, man, it's all the stuff that kind of bores me about typical dungeon crawls, this doesn't seem to have. And I don't know that I've been that impressed with, a dungeon crawl in a long time. At least not for solo play. Playing with a group is different because it's more like RPG-ish. But playing by yourself, where you get that puzzle element, like something like Mage Knight, which is one of the reasons it's so popular, I don't think we have a dungeon crawl that really does that this well. So I think it's going to do well. It's just a matter of how long it takes for people to be able to get it. That's going to be a major problem.
And if he makes enough for the second print run and all that stuff.
Because they came in like 20,000 short on the first print run. So that's...
Yeah, he like the BGG page has gotten 100,000 views for 3 straight weeks. That's unprecedented, literally. No game gets that much buzz that off for that consistent amount of time. So I really hope I can get my hands on a copy of the second printing at this point.
Yeah, I know you and a lot of people. Man, I was in my local store when the one copy they got came in, and there was 3 people there. Looked like they're about to get in a fight over it. Because he had like 6 or 7 people ask for a copy, and so it was just whoever's top of the list gets it because this is all they sent me. But yeah, it's I do feel bad because that's... Who knew 18 months ago backing this that it would be this hot?
All right, so let's stop making the people jealous and move on to something that Actually, you know what? I take that back because this next game you might have a little bit of a hard time finding this one too right now. But reprints come in. It should be here way sooner than Gloomhaven, and that is Clank. Clank with an exclamation point. So every time I say it, I have to say Clank. Uh, this is a 2016 release, so it came out last year. It's designed by Paul Dennen and published by Renegade Games. It's one of the best games of 2016. To be honest with you, it kind of came out of nowhere. There wasn't a lot of buzz around this game, but now that it's hit, it kind of outstripped a lot of the other more hyped up games. So, say a game like Quadropolis, which came out earlier in the year, Days of Wonder, get a lot of buzz. I feel like more people are talking about this game, just to kind of as a point of comparison. So, if you don't know what Clank is, it's a mashup of two different types of games. It's an adventure game where there's a board and you're moving your meeples around, you're getting your treasure, and you're getting out. It's competitive, very competitive actually in some ways. Not like in terms of direct combat, but in terms of you can kind of mess with people. You get in, you get out. So that's cool enough, but it's also a deck builder. You start with a very simple deck that generates movement and skill, which is skill, quote unquote, which is the money to buy more cards. So very, very Dominion. You get your money and you get your, whatever else it is, plus actions, plus buy, but it comes in just a different language in this game. As you buy better cards, the market will move along, kind of Ascension style with that river. So you'll see new cards every turn. You'll get more attack points, more victory points, more money. And whoever can build the most efficient deck, whoever can make the best decisions spatially, which is the thing that this does that other deck builders don't, where the deck build, like a regular deck builder, you just make your most efficient deck and that's basically it. This one, you're making an efficient deck and you have to make smart decisions spatially on the board, which is a very cool combination. And there's been a couple of other games. I'm thinking of Trains. It came out right after Dominion came out. And I didn't like Trains at all. I thought it was just Dominion with like some hexes in front of me that I didn't care about. This game does it right. I mean, this game really does board game plus deck builder in a really fun, really cute way. I played it last year we just taught it to ourselves at a game day, and it was really easy to pick up. I had a lot of fun. And when I finished playing it last year, I'm like, man, I wish this game played solo or I'd buy it in a heartbeat. Ta-da! 2017 hits, and we get an app. So this app actually it also kind of came out of nowhere, maybe. I don't think I heard too much buzz about it. Not like, Mansions of Madness, I heard about the app coming for as soon as they announced it, and they had this, kind of lead time for it. This app, not quite Mansions of Madness, that like it's not replacing any particular player. It's just setting up a bunch of different goals that you want to accomplish. So you're playing one character, and every single turn, it gives you an option for like a quest to do. And the quests are very simple. Generate 3 attack on a turn. You either do it or you don't. You do it, you get something. You don't do it, you get a little penalty, right? Or, what are some of the other quests? Generate 3 move in a turn, or clear the 3rd card in a market. Very, very simple stuff, but it creates a little bit of a decision point, right? Okay, so I'm right next to a space. That space has a giant juicy treasure on it, but my goal from the app is I need to, generate 5 attack and I need to defeat something. So do I move or do I attack? And that's cool. Like it doesn't, maybe that doesn't sound like the most exciting thing in terms of a verbal explanation, but if you're in it and you're imaginatively wrapped up in the game, that's a really cool decision to make. And the app is really smooth. I know they've had some design issues with it, but for the most part, it's pretty smooth. And it's great. It really does. It's a true solo variant. They could have done this with a deck of cards or with some sort of other little solo module, but they did it with the app. The app has cute music. It's very slick. It's just really, really awesome. Normally, we don't like to generate the high score and win type games, which is this game is. It just basically creates resistance to create the high score. But the fact that it is creating that resistance, it isn't just like the game and you're playing for a high score. It really does force you to make these decisions. It's great. I really, really like it. I really like Clank. You have to like Clank in order to like this game. If you don't like Clank, this game will not, the app will not turn it into this awesome experience for you. You have to like deck builders, but I do. I like deck builders. I love adventure games. Put them together in a really cute way and make it solo. Bam. So as soon as this comes back into stock and cool stuff, it's right in the cart. Really highly recommended. That's Clank and the companion app.
That is one that I overlooked, unfortunately, last year at Gen Con, and have regretted since because it's been hard to find. And now that there's an app, I regret it more because I would actually play it. But no, it sounds really good because I'm not a huge deck building guy. Like, it can't just be a straight deck builder. I never was a big Dominion fan, even with the expansions or anything. And like trains, I'm totally with you. Like, I love the idea of melding the two, but it just didn't quite work in that game. Tyrants of the Underdark almost got there. I did like that, but a little bit more, but not. It was a little bit too stabby.
That's a perfect example of a game that had a lot of hype last year, and this game kind of raced ahead of it. So like Tyrants of the Underdark, Defenders of the Last Stand. I mean, these are big games, hyped up. Had it kind of put together a lot of things that you want in terms of like the adventure, and you had some card play and whatever, blah blah. But the Clank, this kind of family weight game, I just feel like this game has gotten a lot more traction. And to be quite frank, it deserves it. Though not that those other games are bad, but this game is doing something that what it does way better than those other games did whatever they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much more tension there, too. And like the push your luck element, that really adds to it. So I 100% agree. And I will also be picking this up as soon as I can.
All right, so now that we've fed the beast and given the people some games, we did want to shift over in the time that we have left to talking about you guys, talking about the community, talking about actually the way that someone put it. It was a little bit more direct in another thread. It was, are solo gamers antisocial? Why are we playing these games? Do we hate people? So rather than kind of have a conversation between the two of us, which I'm sure we'll both give our thoughts along the way, we wanted to take the answers from you guys. So I have a list. I basically have organized it in terms of like I think there's a couple of main reasons why people play solo, and we can kind of break it down and talk there. And so the one that comes up most often is you play solo because there's some kind of impediment to the quote-unquote ideal, which is a regular game group, which makes solo gaming kind of like plan B, right? So yeah, a lot of people, this is something that a lot of people grapple with. So you have no one to play with. I'm quoting Scott Frank. I'm geographically isolated from any populace that plays board games. My game group is my brother and brother-in-law who live one state away. So we game twice a year. That's sad.
That is sad.
Game group is stayed away and you only game twice a year. I mean, I bet there, I could have picked a ton of quotes about that. And Anthony and I have personal experience with that because we're both New Yorkers, but I moved up to Connecticut and Anthony moved to Pittsburgh, and it took us a while to find our game groups.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have a weekly kind of local group I go to here, but even that, it's like, these aren't like people that I've been playing games with for years and years. They're nice local people and they're fun to hang out with, but back in New York, I had like the regular group. So it is tough. It is tough to kind of find that time, but also find the right group of people who play the types of games you want to play too. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So then another kind of in this group is you have friends, but you don't have time because of kids or jobs or other responsibilities. So I'm going to quote a couple of people here. This is Juha Lukaja. Please forgive my pronunciation. 12-hour days, a fourth and first grader. I will try to squeeze in a game night every now and then. We do have a sort of group, but all but one of us have kids, and everyone is working on the weekends except me. So it gets really hard to find a time that suits everyone. Me and Anthony can really lay claim to that. We both have young kids. It's really tough to game around kids and all that kind of thing. I also wanted to throw in Jan Norman over here. I just got into board games and I don't know anyone else that plays locally. I am very busy, work full time, and I have 4 horses that I work with as much as I can, so I have odd hours available. So even the equestrians among us have trouble getting game groups going. So and this is one that Anthony just brought this up. I definitely wanted to point this one out. You may have the time, you may have the people you play with, but they don't want to play your favorite games. I quote Bryce Nelson. I apologize for that, Bryce. I want meteor games. I keep going to game groups with high expectations for something and end up playing cash and guns, which I like, but I grow bored of. Solo game is a sanity saver for my craving for something heavier. I'm off to order Leaving Earth. And then there's Jen Alabach. I've gotten strategic in buying games with the solo options, as my friend group always seems to want to play the same games over and over again. I hope I never play Munchkin again.
Hear, hear.
So is that something that you struggle with, Anthony? Nobody like just having tastes line up with your taste?
The group I go to now is mostly Euro gamers, which is great. Play heavier stuff, but we play at a coffee shop. So if I want to bring out my copy of, Scythe or Nations or something big that takes up a lot of space but also takes a lot of time, it's like a perfect storm to get that played. Whereas those same games I can play at home by myself whenever I want. So they do tend to get played more that way.
Yeah, definitely. And this is the last one in terms of limitations. I think this was really important. Maybe this is a little bit of a public service part of the podcast. But a lot of people, they face the impediment not of external circumstances, but they have their own personal limitations. I quote Koa Boyd. I play solo games because I'm handicapped and I have Parkinson's disease. So I'm home a lot by myself. My wife works long hours. I love to play board card games with nobody to play. So when I found this group and learned by reading posts, I was kind of excited. Welcome, Koa. I definitely, in my own kind of thinking about this, I definitely forget that there's a lot of people who have, health limitations, or I think another person in the thread said they were going through chemo. And I think that's great. I think that really speaks to how just really great these games are, that they're not just fun, but they're really helping people kind of serve this, some deeper needs.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's, like you said, it's something you don't really think about, especially if it's not something you interact with on a regular basis. But I think it's super important to keep that in mind. These games really have an important purpose in the hobby, keeping people involved who couldn't otherwise.
Sometimes we just don't want to. Some of us are introverts, I talked about this on the Thanksgiving episode. We just, being with people may be awesome, maybe, whatever, but it's draining. It really takes a lot of energy to be with people. So solo gaming does what, Bill Linville? I need to just play and unwind to keep better focus on life instead of the chaos of things. Gaming keeps me centered. Solo gaming is my relaxation and ability to just keep control of an otherwise uncontrollable life. Amen to that, brother.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Do you have like a time when you just really needed to de-stress and you threw something on the table and just, did the trick?
Oh yeah, man. It's there's something about board games where time kind of ceases to exist a little bit. Like you experience this playing with other people too. You're like, oh, that was real quick. How long was it? 2.5 hours. Like, how did that happen? But sometimes when you're just really stressed, that's a really good thing. Just kind of get into that zone, play something that you're really familiar with and comfortable with, focus all of your energy on that. It's almost meditative. Really, really helps just to unwind.
Yeah. And then there's kind of the other end of things, like maybe, other games are really bothering you. I quote Timothy Vochta here. I don't really fit in with gamers that meet at restaurants and game stores. I'm too old to put up with bad manners, alpha gamers, know-it-alls, and dubious hygiene. So I've limited my game purchases since the middle of last year to mostly solo playing games now. As board gamers, sometimes we have to acknowledge that, we don't play. Sometimes the people we hang out with aren't the best. Some assistant people, or maybe the people don't, they're not right. We do have to acknowledge that too. And solo gaming is a way to, just kind of avoid that and not get into like a big argument where like, okay, you must sit down and play this with me, and even though I hate you, and even though I don't like your spell, okay, you just don't. You just it's almost like a peace offering. It's like, you know what, you game over there, I'm gonna game over here, and let's just work it out that way. I guess those are the most popular reasons that are kind of talked about. I just think there's also like purely positive reasons that we play games, right? So solo gaming is just plain awesome, right? Max Jansen, I have a very active social gaming community where I live. I have 2 small children, and the people I play with also have children. But I take out a solo game just because you enjoy the silent puzzle of it. When we interviewed Ignacy, he did talk about solo games as, anybody who likes to lay down a big puzzle and just solve it. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's probably the number one reason I enjoy these games, outside of all the other reasons, not being able to get out of the house. So, like, my favorite solo games tend to be puzzles, the big heavy ones especially, just because even if it's a high score thing, just trying to figure out the most efficient way to get there is fun for me.
Yep, and then I'm actually on the side of Dale Bonacore. This was from the BGD thread. He talks about immersing himself into a theme. I love immersing myself into a game's world and slowly exploring it, gradually learning its terrain and its dynamics. This is an adventure, which for me is more fun than can possibly express into words. I really appreciate the opportunity to go at my own pace and to be able to stretch a session over multiple evenings with no pressure to rush it, especially for bigger games. I'm really into this because I played a lot of D&D when I was young, and I never ever could get the kind of D&D that I want. I had some great sessions, my friends all DM and everything, but like I love like a rich theme. I love knowing the source book. So like I read the Forgotten Realms book, I read the Eberron book, read the Shadowrun book, just to like know what is in the world, and that matters to me. So if I can't get it, like if I'm playing like a giant solo game, which is why I'm really down to play Gloomhaven, I would really love to get into that,
Yeah, it hasn't always been a big thing for me, but lately there's been a lot of games that play solo that have this really good, like Mansions of Madness and now Gloomhaven, so I'm starting to feel it more.
Cool. And then there's an easy one. You're learning and teaching rules. This is from Jokemeister on BGG. Sometimes I play solo games so that I can learn the game in advance of teaching it to my group. I'm the main supplier and teacher of games in my group, so it's important to prepare prior to game night. Yes, if you're going to teach a game, please prepare it ahead of time. We've been to both Anthony and I have been subject to very poor teachers who just kind of wing it. Play the game solo, for crying out loud, and teach us the game the right way.
Yeah, I will literally get up and leave a table if someone's like, okay, I just got this, I just gotta look through the rule book real quick. I'm like, nope, I have such limited time. Please take the time at home. I do. Every game I bring out, I make sure I play it at home first. So I expect the same.
Mm-hmm. And then there's, so this is the last one. I know this is running a little bit long, but whatever. We're celebrating you guys. So this is the genuine alternative to TV and video games. This is from Paul Animal Kellett. I spend all my time at work staring at a screen and often end up with eye strain, so that the last thing I want to do is spend all night playing video games. I find board games to be much more relaxing. Video games always end up making me angry or wound up. This really came home for me. So in my real life, I'm a therapist. I scared a screen to write notes, but for the most part, I'm kind of talking with clients. So when I get home, I don't really care too much about, if it has a screen or something with an app or anything. But I tried to play Sentinels in a Multiverse with my group, and I whipped out the Sentinels companion app, and they're like, no, no, not a screen. No, my eyes. All my friends are programmers. They spend the entire day.
Yeah.
I imagine the overlap between programmer and board gamer is pretty significant. So I definitely appreciate that too,
Yeah. I mean, I'm on the computer a good 8 hours a day, so I feel it. I actually get annoyed sometimes because there'll be a video game I want to play and I just can't get myself to do it. I'm like, I don't want to look at the TV. So I'll just play Lord of the Rings. It's fine. It's fine.
There you go. So I think the take home is that, there's a lot of people do play solo games as their plan B, but I do think that, especially with the activity in the Facebook group and the one player guild, and the people who are kind of like assaulting Kickstarter whenever a game doesn't come out with a solo mode, I do think that it isn't because we're antisocial. It isn't because we're asocial or don't care. I really do think we play solo because we just love games. Like, we're bursting with enthusiasm for this hobby. It may sound funny to say, but we may love games more than our friends and more than our families and potential game partners. And we're just not going to let those limitations stop us from enjoying this hobby that we really love, So so we're not antisocial. We don't hate people. We love games, and that we're just not going to let, a lack of playing partners stop us. We're just going to keep on doing what we're doing. And guess what? We got plenty of people who are playing solo, quote unquote, with us on Facebook.
You hear that, everybody? Solo gamers are the best gamers.
We are the best gamers. Huzzah.
Yeah, and I can say that because this is a solo podcast. So if you're listening to it, you agree with me. I'm not insulting anyone, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah, so everybody out there, everybody we mentioned, and everybody who we didn't mention but maybe voiced a similar thought, thank you for giving us your thoughts on that thread. We'll go ahead and put this up on the Board Game Geek Guild too. So if you have additional thoughts, maybe you have a reason you play solo games that we didn't mention, or maybe you have a really cool story about playing solo games that's specific to you, or for what the reasons that you play, we'd love to hear it. And if it's super cool, we will probably read it on the podcast, because this was a lot of fun to dig through these and see everybody's different reasons, and to some degree get some validation on some of our own reasons, and see that a lot of other people have similar circumstances. So that was pretty cool. So that's going to go ahead and be everything for this week. And again, if you have any additional stories, or just want to say hi, or shoot us a note about either Clank or Gloomhaven and give me grief about, bragging about it for 10 minutes there, feel free to hit us up on hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, or the Board Game Geek Guild, which is 1735. We are on all of those all the time, and you can find us in any of them, or in the solo gaming group on Facebook. We're both in there pretty frequently, and we'll probably spot your post. So that's going to go ahead and be everything for this week. Until next time, we will save you a seat at this table for one.
Hey, everybody.